North Korea launched a space rocket a day after announcing its schedule for sending a military reconnaissance satellite into orbit. The South condemned it for violating UN Security Council resolutions. The US and Japan also lodged strong complaints while an evacuation alert was also issued in parts of Japan. South Korea's delegation reports meaningful progress in inspecting the reliability of Japan's Fukushima wastewater treatment facilities. It says further analysis is needed. Good afternoon. North Korea launched a rocket aimed at putting a spy satellite into space. We go straight over to our defense correspondent Kim Yeon-sung on the line. Yeon-sung, what are we learning so far?
Well, Kellen, to start off, North Korea has reported that the rocket launch was a failure. From what the South Korean military has gathered, North Korea seems to have launched the rocket from Dongchangri in Gyeongbuk-do province. But the North Korean Central News Agency said this morning the launch came short, falling into the West Sea after losing its momentum due to an abnormal flight. According to South Korea's military analysis, the rocket fell into the West Sea, around 200 kilometers west of South Korea's Ochongdo Island. Military authorities on Wednesday morning said that they're fishing out what appears to be debris in the West Sea and carrying it to land for further analysis. The launch did rattle people in South Korea a bit. On Pyeongdo Island, an island off to the South Korea's west coast and located below the rocket's flight trajectory, residents were quickly moved into shelters as public speakers blasted out warnings for a solid 20 minutes. The launch also prompted officials to send emergency evacuation messages through text and public speakers all over the capital city, Seoul, as well, as they initially thought that debris may fall from the sky. The government has since withdrawn the warning, assuring citizens that the failed rocket launch does not pose a risk to the capital.
Right. Now, can you provide more insights on this satellite, Yeon-sung?
Absolutely, Kellen. So this is the first time in more than 7 years that North Korea has launched a rocket carrying a satellite. The latest launch does fall into the schedule announced by Pyongyang. The regime had earlier notified the International Maritime Organization that it would launch the spy satellite sometime between May 31st and June 11th. The latest launch involved one of the regime's most recent developments, a satellite dubbed Malligyong, which is named after a fabled long-range telescope, and this was strapped onto the Cheonlima-1 rocket, named after a mythological horse that's known to travel long and far. However, from what it seems as of now, neither seem to have lived up to their ambitious names. The KCNA said that North Korea is currently analyzing what went wrong and would launch another rocket in the near future. Back to you, Kellen.
All right, our Kim Yeon-sung for us. Thank you. Now, the U.S. and Japan lodged strong complaints while an evacuation alert was also issued in parts of Japan. Our foreign affairs correspondent Bae Jun-seo has more.
After North Korea launched what it claimed was a space launch vehicle, Japan briefly issued a rare emergency alert for Okinawa, urging residents to immediately take shelter inside a building or underground. The warning, issued at around 6:30 a.m., was lifted around 30 minutes later, after Japan's Coast Guard said the projectile was believed to have fallen into the sea.
Due to the possibility that it could fall inside or fly over our country's territory, a J alert was swiftly enacted and information shared with the public.
The Japanese government spokesperson also said Japan has lodged a complaint against North Korea through diplomatic channels in Beijing. He added that Pyongyang's continued actions threaten the safety and security of the country and the international community. Following the launch, the White House also said that it condemned the North Korean space launch, which it says uses ballistic missile technology. White House National Security Council spokesperson Adam Hodge said in a statement that U.S. President Joe Biden and his national security team are assessing the situation in close coordination with their allies and partners. Meanwhile, the United Nations also warned North Korea that any launch using ballistic missile technology would violate UN Security Council resolutions. In the statement, the UN urged Pyongyang to resume diplomatic efforts towards sustainable peace and complete and verifiable denuclearization on the Korean Peninsula. Bae Jun-seo, Arirang News.
Now, why is there so much attention on North's launch of its first reconnaissance satellite? How big of a threat does it actually pose, and the timing? Why now? Here's some insights on the mounting questions. Launching its first reconnaissance satellite is key to North Korea's 5-year military advancement plan rolled out in 2021 with the aim of having it ready by April this year. Sending a satellite into orbit requires a long-range space rocket. While space development is an open race for many countries, this is not the case for North Korea. Because the required rocket involves long-range missile technology and the regime is banned from using it under UN Security Council resolutions, regardless of the purpose. Despite warnings from the international community, North Korea has been accelerating its militarization of space. Earlier in May, leader Kim Jong-un inspected the satellite and gave the go-ahead for, quote, future action plan, with the launch date finalized to be between May 31st and June 11th. Affecting the timing, the weather factors to avoid seasonal monsoon rains or typhoons, but also the North's competitive spirit against the South.
North Korea desperately wants to be ahead of South Korea when it comes to satellite launch capability. And South Korea just put a satellite, 7 of them in fact, into orbit about a week ago.
But at the core of Pyongyang's planning is the military component. Since 1998, North Korea has attempted 6 satellite launches. Just 2 entered orbit, only to fail to communicate with the ground. If this one succeeds, the regime could ramp up its monitoring and precision strike capability against South Korea and the U.S. But experts say there's only so much it could do with that one satellite in its early stage of development.
The satellite seems to be capable of creating only low-resolution images, which will be difficult to identify in the case of rain or darkness. The regime also lacks expertise and infrastructure to analyze the received data.
Plus, more than one satellite is needed to create a comprehensive image of a target. That said, experts say this launch could pave the way for more to come, at which point the North could expand its data analysis and advance the capability of its satellites. South Korea is hosting an anti-proliferation maritime exercise involving the U.S., Japan, and Australia on Jeju Island, but on a smaller scale due to the weather. Wednesday's exercise is part of the Proliferation Security Initiative, or the PSI Forum, that kicked off on Tuesday, aimed at stopping the spread of weapons of mass destruction. According to the Defense Ministry, the exercise involves maritime interception and seizure operations. This includes operating vessels on a command post exercise using computer simulations. But the procedures have been simplified, with the South Korean Navy and Coast Guard ships to anchor at Jeju Civil Military Complex Port for other training such as boardings and inspections. The UN has raised concerns over human trafficking and forced marriages surrounding North Korean women who defect to China. This is the first time the UN has directly targeted China by addressing the issue. Lee Sing-jae has the details.
The United Nations Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women released a report on Tuesday after a review of women's rights in China. The report pointed out the human rights violations that North Korean women refugees face, including human trafficking and forced marriages. The UN organization called on China to not repatriate any North Korean refugees who defect from the North, as North Korean women are being deprived of their rights to give birth because children born in China cannot register their birth locally without exposing the mother to the risk of being deported to North Korea. It also called for North Korean women and girls who have been victims of human trafficking to be given basic social services, such as temporary residence permits, medical and education services, alternative income opportunities, and rehabilitation programs without being punished for violating immigration laws. In response to the report, China did not acknowledge the issue of human rights violations, stating that most of the North Korean women who come to China come to make money, and it's difficult to consider that as human trafficking. The United Nations defines human trafficking as not only the buying and selling of people as goods, but also the act of taking people under the pretext of employment and preventing them from moving freely by exploiting their vulnerable position. The latest CEDAW report marks the first time the UN organization publicized the human rights issue of North Korean refugee women through a human rights review targeting China and not North Korea. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Following their on-site inspections of the Fukushima nuclear power plant last week, South Korea's delegation of experts concluded that they will need more time to assess whether it is truly safe enough for Japan to release the wastewater into the sea this summer. The head of the inspection team, Yoo Guk-hee, said in a press briefing in Seoul on Wednesday that meaningful progress was made in terms of a scientific and technological review of plant's facilities. But he added that further analysis will be needed to reach a more accurate, thorough conclusion on the facility's performance adequacy and potential for long-term operation. Moving forward, Yoo said that the delegation will examine more data from Japan and will keep in touch with Japanese authorities. South Korea's overall industrial output saw the biggest drop in 14 months in April, and retail sales, a barometer for consumer demand, also fell for the second straight month. Our Lee Soo-jin has the details.
South Korea's industrial production fell in April. Data released by Statistics Korea shows that last month's industrial production was down 1.4% compared to the month before. It had risen in the two previous months, and the fall in April was the biggest on-month drop in 14 months. Statistics Korea attributed the decline to lower production in the manufacturing and services sector.
The overall industrial production fell compared to the previous month due to a drop in production in the mining and manufacturing and the services industries.
Production in mining and manufacturing industries fell by a combined 1.2% compared to the previous month, amid a drop of almost 7% in the production of machinery, such as semiconductor equipment. A drop in exports of chips and chemical products caused the manufacturing industry's inventory to shipment ratio to jump by 13.2 percentage points on month to hit 130.4%, the highest rate on record. Production and service industries also fell by 0.3%, mainly due to a drop in the wholesale and retail sectors. Retail sales, a gauge of consumer demand, were down 2.3% compared to the previous month, largely due to the drop in clothing sales led by the base effect of February's spike in clothing demand.
Retail sales were also down from the previous month as sales of apparel, food, and groceries dropped.
That's the second consecutive month that retail sales saw an on-month decline and the largest drop since November last year. Facility investment, however, edged up slightly 0.9% from a month earlier on increased investment in transportation equipment such as airplanes. The Finance Ministry announced on the same day that it will focus on revitalizing the nation's exports, investments, and domestic demand through measures that include monitoring overseas and domestic markets in real time. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
Amid the boom in artificial intelligence, U.S. chipmaker Nvidia joins the $1 trillion club. Nvidia, the largest chipmaker for AI technology, reached $1 trillion in valuation on Tuesday morning after its shares rose 25%. The prices have been rising since May 24th after the company announced second quarter revenue forecasts that were 50% higher than investors' expectations. According to Bloomberg, Nvidia becomes the first chipmaker to reach the milestone and only the 9th company to do so. Other companies with trillion-dollar valuations include Meta, Amazon, Alphabet, Google's parent company. BTS will hold the 2023 BTS Festa as the K-pop superstars celebrate their 10th anniversary. BTS and their fans, the ARMY, mark the anniversary of the band's debut on June 13th every year. But to celebrate this special milestone, the group will collaborate with the city of Seoul with a variety of events and major landmarks across the city. Namsan Tower, Dongdaemun Design Plaza, Seoul City Hall, and the World Cup Bridge will be lit up in purple, a color associated with BTS, with activities also taking place. The Festa runs from May 31st to June 17th with a fireworks finale at Yeouido Hangang Park. Turning now to sports, the 2023 World Taekwondo Championships are underway in Baku, Azerbaijan, and South Korea's Bae Jun-seo clinched Korea's first gold medal at the event on Tuesday. The 20-year-old defeated Russia's Georgy Garciev, who is competing as a neutral athlete in the men's under 58 kilograms final 2-0. Last month, the World Taekwondo Council allowed Russian and Belarusian athletes to participate under a neutral flag without an anthem or emblem after banning them from competing last year due to the war in Ukraine. This is Bae's second World Championship title after his previous win in 2019. Now, the successful third launch of South Korea's very own Nuri rocket last week has opened up the nation's private space endeavors. Our Shin Na-young tells us more about the economic opportunities stemming from the Nuri project.
Behind the successful launch of Nuri is the participation of Hanwha Aerospace, which became the first private company to take part in the project. The involvement comes as space industries in other countries are ready to enter the so-called new space era, led by private companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin.
The country is now transferring technology to the private sector and letting it supervise the integration of such launch vehicles. This is because when the domestic industry weakens, it is difficult for even the national-led space development to progress.
3 more launches of the Nuri rocket will be carried out between now and 2027, with Hanwha Aerospace taking charge. Throughout the process, private firms will take on the responsibility of manufacturing the Korean space launch vehicles while aiming to improve their manufacturing skills. Following the third launch of Nuri, South Korea's space industry as well as other industries are expected to see growth.
The aerospace industry encompasses all industries related to space exploration, such as the construction and operation of launch vehicles and satellites, as well as the development and supply of satellite services, therefore having significant added economic value.
As seen in the war in Ukraine, in emergency situations, satellite communication, such as that provided by SpaceX's Starlink satellite internet service, is important. In fact, the South Korean government is planning to launch 80 satellites by 2030. With increasing demand for satellites, semiconductor and communication service sectors are expected to grow, along with advancements in technologies for monitoring climate and observing terrain. Based on a forecast of the global market reaching $1 trillion by 2040, the government hopes to expand South Korea's share in the global space market to 10% by 2045. Starting this year, the government is planning to invest 2 trillion won, or roughly $1.5 billion, in developing a next-generation launch vehicle that is even more advanced than Nuri. It'll be used to launch a lunar lander in 2032. The Yoon administration is also working on establishing a National Aeronautics Administration, or a Korean version of NASA, in order to lead the country's space economy. Shin Na-young, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. In Russia, drone attacks on Tuesday local time hit buildings in the capital, Moscow. According to reports, the attacks injured 2 people and damaged at least 3 residential buildings. Russia has blamed Ukraine for the strikes. President Vladimir Putin said the attack was an attempt by Ukraine to frighten Russians. He added that it is a clear sign of terrorist activity. But Ukraine has denied any involvement. For its part, Ukraine has been hit by 17 airstrikes this month, including one on the capital of Kyiv on Monday, which killed at least one person. Disgraced Theranos founder Elizabeth Holmes has begun her 11-year prison sentence. Holmes on Tuesday local time entered a federal Texas prison after her request to remain free on bail while appealing her conviction was rejected. The 39-year-old was convicted on 4 felony counts of fraud and conspiracy in January last year. This because she falsely claimed her company had technology capable of detecting conditions such as diabetes using just a few drops of blood. The hype saw Theranos raise billions in funding from investors. But the technology never worked, and the Silicon Valley-based company closed its doors in 2018. Earlier this month, a U.S. judge also ordered that Holmes and her ex-partner Ramesh Balwani pay $452 million to the victims. Shifting to the tech space, dozens of AI experts and tech leaders, including the heads of OpenAI and Google DeepMind, have warned that artificial intelligence could lead to humanity's extinction. According to a statement published by the Center for AI Safety on Tuesday, the risk of extinction from AI should be a global priority and needs to be reduced. The statement also outlined ways that AI could threaten humanity, including weaponizing AI to make chemical weapons and destabilizing society through generated misinformation. But other experts say fears of extinction due to AI are overblown and unrealistic. And finally, the world's only known white panda has been caught on camera. The bear was spotted in China's Sichuan province in the Wolong National Nature Reserve. Footage shows the bear approaching a calm mother panda and her cub, whom experts believe may be part of its family. The white panda was first discovered in April 2019. Experts have concluded that it is an albino due to its red eyes and lack of black spots. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. It looks to be a repeat of yesterday's weather conditions under brighter skies. Western parts of the country are seeing another big hike in the afternoon highs. East Coast regions are having breezier afternoon again, but southeast regions, including Daegu, should notice warmer highs compared to yesterday. Now, skies are much sunnier today. Other than the capital region, most parts will be under lots of sunshine all through the afternoon, boosting UV rays to very high levels during the day. Meanwhile, Jeju Island is forecast to see 5 to 20 millimeters of more rain this afternoon with breezy afternoon highs. The rest of the country is having highs that are 2 to 4 degrees higher today. The air quality will be normal to good nationwide all day. Now, those in the south need to brace for another band of rain that's in the forecast from Jeju and the south coast tomorrow morning, which will expand to the rest of the southern regions by the afternoon and possibly continue into Friday morning. Now, that's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
Thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of the day.